Devil's Food Cupcakes, a great standard recipe to have in your arsenal. The great thing about this recipe is that it's extra light, but also extremely chocolatey. Let's get started. The main difference in this recipe compared to any other devil's food recipes you may have seen is that it has an egg foam method. Egg foam meaning you have to whip the eggs, whether they are whole or just yolks or separated, into yolks and whites with the sugar. So as you can see here, I have brought my eggs to room temperature. Very important that they are not super cold because that emulsion will not happen if you have your eggs super cold. So I have it here and I started it off at medium speed, and then I will increase it to high speed. So the importance of having it at medium speed first is to just get it started. Here we are at high speed. Now, the whipping cannot really happen in its essence if you don't get it to this high speed. Now, once you see that pale color and it's real thick and kind of frothy, then you can decrease it to medium speed again like it is here. Now, it's important to do that so that you have uniform air cells. If you don't, then you will have irregular air cells and then you will end up with a coarse cake. Nobody wants a coarse cake. So make sure and do this step and be patient with it. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time depending on the mixer or even the hand mixer that you're using. And unfortunately, this cannot be done by hand. It's just too difficult. So now our eggs are at the proper texture. They are at ribbon stage. And you can tell that because when you take your spatula or whisk, then the mixture kind of stays in it for a few seconds. So here's our oil and our buttermilk, and now I'm adding the coffee. So this is considered all of our wet ingredients together. Here's all our dry ingredients, and I went ahead and sifted that ahead of time. You'll notice that this recipe has AP flour in it, and you might think, oh, well, maybe it's not a very light and beautiful recipe, but it actually is very light, even though it has AP flour. Let's start mixing everything together. We have to do an alternating method for this recipe. So we start with our wet ingredients and we fold, folding very carefully. Make sure you don't knock out all the air that you have just made. Next, we add in half of our dry ingredients. As you remember, they're already sifted, so we don't have to do that again. And again, I will fold, folding very carefully to ensure that I don't knock out all the air. Now just continue to do these steps until you have, well, no mix-ins left. And you're going to end with the wet ingredients. And as you continue to fold, you'll see that the mixture gets more and more of that deep chocolate color. You want to also check your batter texture and see, do I have any lumps, etc. Now, what if you have lumps? You could take the whisk to this batter, but only whisk it for a few seconds, and then you're done. Now I'm pouring it into a container here so I can easily portion it into my cupcake cups. I'm not using a scoop for this because unfortunately the scoops that I have are too small, and I think it's easier to utilize a pitcher of some sort. So I have my container here and I have sprayed it and I've put my liners in. So now I will utilize the pitcher to pour in, and I'm pouring in a little bit more than 3/4 of the way, making sure that I don't have any drips as well. Now I went ahead and doubled this recipe so that I could make 12 cupcakes, and in addition to that, you'll see in a second that I have enough batter to also bake a 6-inch cake round. So the 6-inch cake round I'm going to save for another recipe later, but just so you can see here that if you double the recipe, then you can utilize it for 2 different shapes. Now we're going to bake. This goes in a 350-degree oven until it's done. I have pre-sprayed and lined my 6-inch cake pan, and here goes my batter. and it fills the cake pan, I would say at least a 3/4 of the way. And I'm just going to bake it at 350 degrees. And of course, I will rotate it maybe about 20 minutes in until a toothpick comes out clean. Now, because these are very, very different sizes, you want to make sure that you check the cupcakes. I would say 10 minutes in, rotate it, and then check it again maybe in 8 minutes. So you don't want to overbake this cake. Now, it's difficult for me to give very specific times because everybody's oven is different, but it's best to check your oven maybe about 5 or 8 minutes in, especially with the cupcakes, just to see how things are doing. So as you can see in this next clip, this is about 8 minutes in, and I rotated my pan and baked it for another maybe 5 to 8 minutes until it was done. And you'll see in the next clip that they are beautifully cooked. Now, utilize a toothpick or a skewer to make sure that your cake is done. You see there's no batter here, no crumbs. Perfect. You do not want to overbake it. Now I will let my cupcakes cool, and I have my fudge icing in the piping bag, but I'm showing you here that there's some close to the top. And if you're a professional, you want to make sure that you really push the rest of that icing or frosting so that you have a nice clean bag. So I twist it here real taut, and I was using a bowl scraper to do that. These cupcakes look great. They have a nice dome top, as you can see, even, and just really nice color. So let's pipe. First, I'm going to show you what not to do. So you see in this example, I start piping on the outside edge of the cupcake, and I move my way in. And so then you end up with something that resembles, well, a pile of poop. It is not professional by any means, and it's definitely not a rosette, is what I'm going to show you in a second. This is what you should be doing. Start in the middle, and then pipe to the outside with even pressure, and then tightly close. That is a rosette. Let's go ahead and watch it a couple more times. So you notice I started in the center, I go to the outside, and then close. You see that the circle is not an oval, okay? It also doesn't have that kind of pyramid look to it, and so that's what you're looking for a rosette. Professional setting, you would not be just piping one at a time. So I'm showing you how you would do multiples at a time. So I'm going to do 4 rosettes here, so you could see that I don't even need to touch the cupcake at all this time, starting in the middle, ending at the edge, and you can see that it is a beautiful rosette. Not rosé, rosette. Take a look at the interior structure of the cupcake. You can see you have uniform air holes there, and that results in a light but also moist cake. I did not overbake it, and because I used really high quality cocoa powder, the chocolate flavor is really pronounced. Well, here are my finished cupcakes. The great thing about this recipe is that you can utilize it in different shapes and different molds. You can change up the frosting, whatever you want to do. It's very versatile. Good luck!